Hey everybody, welcome back. Chris Raymond here with WyoMoto again. FUNCTIONautosport, we're working on the rally car. We're gonna upgrade something today. We're gonna take a look at the front brakes. A little background with this work that we're about to do is I've been looking for a brake upgrade for the front of my Rally Sentra. Okay, some of you might now be a little familiar with this car. It is a stage rally car. So I run 15-inch wheels. A lot of the Nissan Sentra guys like to go 300ZX, turbo brakes, or even these cars came factory with some Brembos right from Nissan. Those are all great, and yes, they probably work better than what we're doing today. The problem is they do not fit under my wheels. So I've been looking for a solution, did some researching, got on some forums. Some other Sentra guys have done some of the legwork on this, and we found out that some brake components from a 2000 Altima paired with an older Infinity sports sedan calipers actually combine quite nicely and give us a brake upgrade. Braking performance, what am I actually going to get out of this? We're looking at about a 47% increase in stopping power here on the front end, going from a single piston caliper, which is, these are like 55 millimeters in diameter, going to a two piston caliper. Both of these are about 42 millimeters in diameter. So the overall surface area increase is going to give us about 47% more braking on the front end. So if you imagine it, with pressure we put into the pedal, all right, if I put 20 pounds of force into the pedal, these brakes are introducing 140 pounds down here at the pads. These new brakes should be closer to 200 PSI down here with the same amount of force into the brake pedal. So a little bit better braking and should fit underneath my 15-inch wheels. All right, guys, we're gonna get started. First of all, taking the brakes all apart. We're gonna get it all cleaned up, then we'll move over to the bench, take a look at the parts that I'm using, and I can tell you a little bit more about them. So here we go. Here's my factory setup. This is specific. So one of the things with this upgrade is depending on the Sentra that you start with, you may or may not also get a larger diameter rotor. In this case, it's a SER Spec V, so I already have the largest diameter without Brembo brakes. So in some cases, if you upgrade to the Altima rotor, it's basically the same size. In this case, we're getting no surface area difference on the rotor. It's all going to be just the grabbing power here on the caliper. So let's go ahead and start taking this stuff apart. Usual 14 millimeters holding the caliper in, like every Japanese car ever made, forever. Okay, so there's our factory caliper, one large piston. Looks nice, two small pistons are going to be better in this case. We are getting rid of this, but let's go ahead and hang that up properly. Make sure we're not yanking on our hydraulic lines there. All right, I'm not going to go over the torque procedure when you put this stuff back together, but we all know it is critical. Brakes are nice to have and make it nice and safe. So make sure you are torquing everything back down properly when you go back together. Those of you who've watched our other videos here recently, this wheel bearing is doing great, by the way, that we fixed last time. No issues. That new knuckle, I think, finally solved my wheel bearing problem. All right, there's our bracket, the old factory pads, our bracket mounting bolts, which we are going to reuse for the new bracket setup. It's all the same size. We're going to reuse the bolts. Here's our rotor. Again, this one's just in pretty decent shape. Actually, we could keep this as a backup, but I'm going to go ahead and replace it with brand new. I ordered for a 2000 Altima, but again, because of the spec of the Sentra, it essentially has the same size of brakes, same rotor. All right, there's our brand new hub unit. Everything's pretty good. I'm going to show you guys the cleaning process, even though, again, we just did wheel bearings on this. There's not a lot to do. But even with new rotors, you want to make sure that you clean this hub surface off, or you can introduce run out even with brand new rotors. Run out, of course, translates into a brake pedal that vibrates on you, and nobody wants that. So Got a 90-degree air gun here. This little adapter you can get pretty much anywhere. It's really nice, specifically for brakes, with a nice little purple scrub pad. The nice thing about this is it actually reaches all the way over each stud and gets really close to each one, all right? So we can clean this up really good. Really efficient, really nice tool, not terribly expensive. All right, there we go. That's all it takes. Stuff like this is kind of like when we're in engine rebuilding class, I always say when we clean something off with a razor blade, it doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to be flat and smooth. Okay, same kind of thing here. We don't need to machine the surface, all right? We just need to get all the debris off of it so everything's nice and flat. All right, we're pretty well ready to go here, minus taking the hose off, the brake fluid hose, but we're gonna leave that for now. So we're gonna move it over to the table and take a look at the brand new parts we're putting on. This is what we're gonna be using today. Of course, you can collect all of this stuff out of a junkyard. The calipers are a little bit harder to find, but not too bad, really. What I did is just I went and bought remanufactured units from a local parts store. So they are reconditioned and new as opposed to using junkyard stuff. Yes, it costs more. In this case, not that expensive, and I'm never sure what I'm gonna get with junkyard stuff. But that is a good solution if you're on a budget. So here's what we got. So we have our brand new bracket. This will match up right to the Sentra knuckle. The bracket and the rotor, again, I ordered as a 2000 Altima, Nissan Altima. It doesn't matter, I believe, what engine trim level it has. Just 2000 Altima, all front brakes should be the same. Bracket and caliper from a 2000 Altima. Now this is really, this is the more difficult part, but again, wasn't that hard for me to source a remanufactured caliper. This I got for a 1995 Infiniti J30, which is an older luxury rear wheel drive kind of sports sedan that Infiniti brought over. It had a short run, like 92 to 97, but they're out there. This again was not hard for me to order, came from our regional area, so not too bad. All right, this is a race car, obviously. So we're gonna upgrade the brake pads a little bit. I've been on factory pads, and that of course has held me back. As long as we're doing this, we're gonna upgrade a little bit. So I got the Hawk HPS, just ordered them online from a wholesaler, and this is what we're gonna run in this setup. I also ordered them for a 2000 Altima, but as I was comparing them to the old brake pads, I feel like they're pretty similar to the Sentras. Not close enough to where I would order for a Sentra and expect them to fit. I will continue to order for an Altima, but they are pretty darn close. So here's the pad. Now, one thing to note with this, I wasn't sure exactly how much modifying I would need to do, and as it turns out, there is some, but it's very minimal. On the brake pads, there is a nipple on either end on the new pads, and essentially that's used to rivet a noise or a squeaker tab on there, so when your brakes get low, it makes noise and you're aware of the situation. Now, each pad had 2 of them. I very quickly went over to the grinder, knocked them off, put a little enamel on them, just a little paint, and they're good to go. Those nipples would actually interfere on the claws, not so much on the cylinder side, but it wouldn't allow the caliper to fully contact the outer pads. So you do need to make sure that you remove those off the brake pads before you actually use them. All right, we're gonna go ahead, this rotor is fresh out of the box. So as you normally do with rotors, we're gonna go ahead and clean this off. We are going to assemble, there's a little bit of assembly off to do on the bracket, and then we'll be ready to head back to the car. Rotors always have a little bit of corrosion resistant oil on them. Gotta make sure brake clean that off really good. That will destroy your pads if you're not careful. All All right, so I did also, while I was at it, get a hardware kit, a couple of them, to build these up since I didn't have used brackets. So some slide pins, some mounting bolts, washers. All right, a little bit of assembly here. As you guys are doing this, these slide pins do need to go into a certain position. The gold one will be on the bottom, the silver one on the top, I believe. We'll take a look as we get going here. But make sure if you service these, if you pull them apart, they are specific onto whether they are on the top or the bottom. So just make sure you get them back where they came from. And we're just going to double check and make sure we've got it right. Left hand, so silver is on the top. Gold will be on the bottom. There's a number of different things we can use to lubricate these pins, and the things I've used that work best for me is just some dielectric grease. It's really great. There's a number of different things, of course. All right, don't need a crazy amount. If you get too much on these pins, it can actually prevent them from sliding fully into the bore. There we go. The boots do hold them into place. That's what that little click was. All right, last thing we're going to do are some new pad clips. Lock right into place. Right, so we got our bracket, caliper, and our rotor all ready to go on the car. That's where we'll head next. Okay, back on the car, we're going to start assembling everything. We'll throw my wheel on when we're all done and make sure everything fits properly. So here we go, rotor first. Grab that. Okay, if possible, I just like to throw one of the lug nuts on there to help keep it flat against the hub. That just helps a little bit when you're going back together with it. Keeps your brake pads where you want them before you get the caliper on, so they don't come flying out. Okay, we got our bracket. Got our pads ready to go. We're going to grab some of the lubricant that came with the hawk pads, and we're just going to lubricate some of the key areas just to reduce any noise that we got going on in here. They're race type pads, so they're probably going to be noisy anyway, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and get this sorted out. Just a little bit of lubricant here along the top. Around both ears usually is what I tell people. It doesn't take much. You obviously don't want to get any grease on the friction material itself. Same over here. Now, if you don't have any special grease like this, that's okay. You can use anti-seize. Specifically, the copper anti-seize works really great. And as a professional technician, generally that's what I used. Some of these more premium or race pads do come with their own lubricant in a lot of cases. Made sure I've got the correct side here. Bleeder valve on top. We're going to go ahead and Slide that over the calipers. You might have to compress your pins a little bit to get the ears of the caliper over them. There we go, new caliper brakes on. Before we disassemble the other caliper fully from the vehicle, I'm gonna go ahead and test fit this wheel and make sure it all works how we think it's going to. All right. Still got a fair gap in there. It'll work just fine. So when you were fitting wheels and tires, obviously we're looking for a gap here. We also don't want the caliper to strike any of the spokes as they come by. So it's not just wheel diameter, but also how far in or out it is with the offset. But if it clears, no matter how thin that gap is, you're good. None of this stuff is gonna change dimension as you're driving. So I've seen some pretty incredible setups that have just the tiniest sliver of a gap. As long as it's not touching, you're good to go. All right, let's try this again now that I've got the right socket here. So we're just going to disconnect the banjo bolt and fitting off the back of the old caliper, and then we're going to reintroduce it to the new one. Certainly seemed a lot tighter than that just a minute ago. You want to take care not to stress that hose too much as you're moving it around. Also, when you go back together, twisting the hose and then securing it into place can cause that hose to deteriorate faster and eventually release and come apart. There we go. Fully installed. Looks like everything fits pretty good. We'll repeat that same process on the other side and we'll be good to go. Now remember to torque everything down when you're done. Of course, don't leave it loose. It will come apart. Not good. We are going to bleed the brakes. I'm not going to show that right now. I've got some other work that needs to happen before obviously the other side needs done. But I also have some hydraulic handbrake work that we're going to need to do before we replace all the fluid in this thing and bleed everything out. So that would be the last couple steps back together, and then down the road, hopefully with some more braking force. So thanks again for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I want to see what you guys have to say about it. If you Nissan guys have heard of other calipers that fit or what everybody else is doing, I always like to hear about it. Thanks again to Casper College for letting us hang out here and do the work. And we'll see you guys next time.